The battlefield on Xenara Prime was a slaughterhouse of mud, blood, and shattered energy weapons. Corporal Daniel Reyes lay dying in a crater filled with oily black rain, his lungs filling with fluid as shrapnel tore through his chest. His squad was gone, vaporized by the enemy's plasma barrage. The pain was blinding, a white-hot fire that made every breath feel like swallowing glass. He could feel his life slipping away, vision tunneling to a narrow point of gray. Through the haze, a shadow moved. She appeared like a ghost from the smoke, tall, pale-skinned, with eyes the color of molten rubies and long obsidian hair that whipped in the toxic wind. Her armor was sleek, alien, etched with crimson runes that pulsed like living veins. She was no human. She was Vera, one of the Nightborn, the vampire-like warriors from the shadowed moons of Thaler who had joined the alliance against the invading swarm. But right now, she looked like death itself. Daniel's hand twitched toward his sidearm, but he had no strength left. Blood bubbled from his lips as he coughed. "Just, finish it," he rasped. The alien woman knelt beside him, her movements graceful even in the chaos. Those ruby eyes studied him with clinical detachment at first, then something softer, curiosity, perhaps pity. "You fight bravely, human," she murmured, her voice a low, velvety hiss that cut through the distant explosions. "But your body is failing." She drew a slender blade from her belt and, without hesitation, sliced open her own wrist. Dark, shimmering blood welled up, thick, almost black, with threads of silver light dancing within it. The scent was metallic yet sweet, like forbidden wine aged under alien stars. "Drink," she commanded, pressing the wound to his cracked lips. "It is the only way you survive this night." Daniel's mind screamed no, alien blood, vampire blood, who knew what it would do? But death was already closing its fist around his heart. In a final act of desperate rebellion against the end, he latched onto her wrist and drank. The blood hit his tongue like liquid fire and ice at once. It burned down his throat, spreading through his veins with explosive force. Pain exploded everywhere, his cells screaming as something ancient and powerful rewrote them from the inside out. His back arched violently, a guttural cry tearing from his throat. The world spun into chaos. Visions of crimson moons, endless hunts through velvet darkness, the taste of stars and conquest. Then everything went black. When consciousness returned, the battlefield had fallen eerily silent. The rain had stopped. Daniel's eyes snapped open, and the first thing he noticed was the absence of pain. Not just dulled, gone. Completely. He sat up slowly, muscles responding with a fluid strength he had never known. His torn combat suit hung in rags, but the gaping wound in his chest had sealed into a faint, silvery scar that shimmered with inner light. He felt alive. Dangerously, impossibly alive. His senses had sharpened to an unbearable degree. He could hear the faint heartbeat of a dying enemy soldier half a kilometer away. He could smell the coppery tang of blood on the wind, the ozone of spent plasma, and beneath it all, the intoxicating scent of the woman who had saved him. Colors were more vivid, the night sky above painted in hues of deep violet and crimson that human eyes had never been meant to see. And the hunger. It rose like a tide, raw, primal, a thirst that clawed at his throat and made his newly sharpened fangs, ache. He ran his tongue over them instinctively and froze. They were longer, sharper. Predatory. The alien woman, Vera, stood a few paces away, watching him with wide ruby eyes. Her wrist had already healed, but a single drop of her blood still glistened on her pale skin. "It worked," she whispered, a mix of awe and wariness in her tone. "You survived the turning." Daniel rose to his feet in one smooth motion, his body moving with predatory grace he couldn't control. The battlefield around him came into terrifying focus, bodies of fallen comrades and enemies alike, the distant glow of enemy dropships retreating. But his attention locked onto Vera. She was beautiful in a lethal way, elegant features, full lips, a body honed by centuries of night hunts. The bond formed through her blood sang between them, pulling him toward her with magnetic force. What am I?" he asked, his voice deeper now, laced with a resonant timbre that vibrated through the air. Vera stepped closer, her expression a storm of emotions, relief, fascination, and a flicker of fear. "You are no longer merely human, Daniel Reyes. My blood has awakened the Nightborn within you. You are faster, stronger, nearly immortal. You will crave blood, but you can choose whose. The hunger will test you. Most humans who survive the turning, break." The suspense coiled tight in his chest. He could feel the power surging through him, tempting him to test its limits, to hunt, to claim. Yet the emotional weight hit harder. Grief for his lost squad, confusion at this new existence, and an intense, unexpected connection to the woman who had given him a second life. He remembered the taste of her blood, intimate, forbidden, binding them in ways words could never explain. "You saved me," he said hoarsely, taking a step toward her. His hand reached out, trembling slightly despite his new strength, and brushed a strand of her dark hair from her face. The touch sent sparks through both of them. "Why?" "I was nothing to you." Vera's ruby eyes softened, vulnerability cracking her warrior mask. "Because in all the centuries I have walked the dark, I have never seen a human fight with such quiet desperation to protect others. You stayed behind to cover your squad's retreat even when hope was gone. That kind of heart is rare. I could not let it die." Tears, actual tears, burned in Daniel's enhanced eyes. The emotional intensity crashed over him. Gratitude so profound it hurt, the terror of what he had become, and a growing, magnetic pull toward this alien vampire who had shared her essence with him. He pulled her into his arms without thinking, crushing her against his chest. She was cool to the touch, yet her body fit perfectly against his newly awakened form. A low, involuntary growl rumbled in his throat as her scent enveloped him, night-blooming flowers and starlit blood. She didn't pull away. Instead, her hands slid up his back, fingers tracing the new silvery scars that marked his transformation. "You are changing faster than any I have seen," she murmured against his neck, her breath cool and teasing. "Your eyes, they burn like fresh-turned embers. The others will be shocked. The human soldier who drank Nightborn blood and rose as one of us." The word "others" sent a spike of suspense through the moment. In the distance, the sounds of approaching Alliance forces grew. Human med teams, alien commanders, scanners sweeping the battlefield for survivors. They would find him like this, changed, fanged, radiating an aura of dangerous power. What would they do? Hunt him as a monster? Study him as a freak? Or fear the hybrid he had become? Daniel pulled back just enough to look into Vera's eyes, his hands cupping her face with surprising gentleness for someone who now possessed the strength to crush steel. "I feel everything," he confessed, voice thick with raw emotion. "The hunger, it's like fire in my veins. But more than that, I feel you. Inside me. Your blood sings in my heart. Is this what it means to be bonded?" Vera nodded, a single tear of her own tracing down her pale cheek, rare for one of her kind. "The blood bond is eternal, Daniel. You will sense my pain, my joy, my presence across any distance. And I will feel yours. It is intimate. Dangerous. Most Nightborn choose their turning carefully. I chose you in a moment of impulse, and now." Her words trailed off as the first Alliance searchlight swept over the crater. Voices shouted in the distance, human, then translated alien commands. "Survivors. Over here." Daniel tensed, every new instinct screaming to protect Vera, to flee into the shadows where his kind belonged. But he stood his ground, holding her close. The transformation had left him something more than human, something primal and powerful, yet the core of who he was, the loyal soldier, the man who refused to abandon others, remained. When the first team crested the ridge, their flashlights landed on the two of them. Gasps and shocked curses filled the air. A human medic dropped his kit. An alien commander froze, weapon half raised. Daniel's eyes glowed with that new ember light, fangs visible as he spoke in a calm, commanding voice that carried unnatural authority. "Stand down. I'm Corporal Reyes. She saved my life." The reactions were immediate and visceral. Whispers turned to shouts. "He's turned. Nightborn hybrid. Look at his eyes, my God, what is he?" Vera stepped slightly in front of him, her own ruby gaze fierce and protective. But Daniel gently moved her aside, facing the crowd with a strange serenity. The shock on their faces mirrored the storm inside him, everyone staring at the dying soldier who had risen as something legendary and terrifying. Yet in that suspended moment, with Alliance forces surrounding them, weapons trembling in uncertain hands, Daniel felt no fear. Only a profound emotional clarity. He had drunk alien vampire blood and become something that left the galaxy in shock. A bridge between species. A new kind of warrior born from sacrifice and forbidden essence. He looked at Vera, their bond humming warmly between them like a living thread of starlight and shadow. "Whatever I've become," he said softly, only for her ears, "I'm glad it was you who gave it to me." She smiled, a small, genuine curve of her lips that held centuries of loneliness finally broken. Her hand found his, fingers intertwining as the searchlights blinded them both. The night held its breath. The soldier was gone. In his place stood a being of shadow and power, bonded eternally to the alien vampire who had chosen him in his final moments. The shock rippled outward, but between them, in the quiet eye of the storm, there was only the fierce, intimate connection of two souls who had found each other across the void of life and death. And as the commands rang out to secure the area, Daniel Reyes, now something far more, knew the real battle was only beginning. Not against enemies on the field, but against a galaxy that would never look at him the same way again.